Okay, I've got 7 o'clock. If I could please call the meeting to order. Welcome to the Town of Pendleton September Planning Commission meeting. If I could please have a roll call, starting to my left.
Carol Hannah,
Brad Valentine,
Tim Pritchard,
Kyle Eichhorn,
Jenny Sisson,
Andrew Holloway.
all right, and Cheryl online or not present?
no, Jeff's on my.
Jeff's online. Hello, Jeff. Thank you. We do have a quorum.
Yeah.
If I could ask the board to review the minutes from the July meeting and take a motion for approval. As there were no minutes for August, we didn't have a meeting.
I'll move to approve.
I have a motion for July to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a second. All those in favor of the July meetings minutes as submitted, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none. Okay, there is no old business on the agenda. Again, the new business for the housing subdivision at Howard's Rolling Acres, which is at Madison Avenue, the petitioner has withdrawn their request to the planning commission. So they will have to resubmit their application, re-notify everybody, and start the whole process all over again. So everybody that got notified the first round will be notified the second round when they reapply. Okay, so right now that hasn't happened. Okay, moving on to item B, it's review and vote on the possible amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance. Denise?
I'm here on behalf of Hannah Rose Urbanski. She couldn't be with us this evening, but yes, she has 5 amendments that she would like to have presented to you for consideration. The first 3 might be ones in which we can make some decisions on tonight. The 4th and 5th items might be something that we will continue over the next meeting or 2, but we wanted to present some information for your consideration and thoughts, here in the next couple of months. But the first item is regarding accessory structure standards. There was some language that we felt that was needed to provide some clarification. Currently, accessory structures within the UDO on page 55 states that accessory structures shall be clearly subordinate in height, area, bulk, extent, and purpose to the primary structure. However, this section doesn't specifically control or give guidance as far as the location for those accessory structures. So we've had some questions come up, and what we would like to propose is some consideration for all zoning districts to outline where that accessory structure can lie within the property boundaries of that parcel, and that would be limited to those which would require an improvement location permit. There are some exceptions that do not require that process, but for those that do require that process, we wanted to bring before you consideration of having that accessory structure placed in the side yard or the rear yard of that primary structure, not to pass the front facade of the primary structure. Now, that being said, I know we do have some zoning districts, especially the RC district, that some of those may not be able to be accommodated, and we could then, through our board of zoning appeals, entertain some variances from that. But we wanted to kind of put it out there and get your thoughts as far as having that front facade requirement for those detached accessory structures. That would be for garages, could be even accessory dwelling units, porches, decks.
You mentioned decks. Don't decks normally protrude from the front door?
That would be kind of front porch. But, and then we could limit that. It could be more to where it would be more of a detached garage, dwelling unit, keeping it more to the side or rear versus being up front. Primary residential.
I think it would be a burden to expect someone that wants to put a front porch on to have to get approval from the BZA.
I agree.
Well, that's not what you're
Unless-
It
saying.
would be, yeah, accessory structure.
It's a complete, a separate
So
building.
completely
It's separate from.
Like a
the primary
detached
structure,
garage.
Okay.
Right.
Detached
Okay.
structure.
It says it must be placed in the side yard or rear yard. But that makes it sound like it's supposed to be within the side yard setback. Should it just say to the side or rear of the primary structure?
Word that way,
Just
yes.
because I know sometimes the side yard and rear yard are your setbacks from the side or the rear, and that's not where you want the structure. It would still need to meet the
Yes,
side
it
and rear
still needs to meet the
setbacks.
Setbacks, yes.
Yeah.
But
So
it
maybe that
just-
should just say place to the side or rear of the primary structure, something like that. Other than that, I think it makes sense.
I agree.
So you said some of the, you can think of some examples that would not, like what, where would be an example that would not comply with that?
Would not comply or just require.
What would require BZA? If it- Just when you put it in front of the primary structure.
Let's say
Or in
someone
front
wanted
of-
to have a detached garage that sits in front of the primary structure. Would protrude and sit in front to allow someone to have a two-car detached garage. If it's a property that's unique, doesn't allow that addition, something that would rest in front of that front facade.
Like if you had a long, narrow lot and your house was in the back and the only place you could build a building would be in front of it, then you'd have to go to the
Okay.
BZA.
Yeah, but yet it would be attached and not attached to that primary.
Pretty special case, but
Yeah.
we probably want to review it. Cheryl, have comments? Andrew?
Yep.
Okay. I think we're good with that, Denise.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, okay. The second one, we've had this come up a little bit, is regarding our fencing. For the UDO, our fence requirements are limited to 6 feet height in the side and rear. Front yard, it's limited to the 4-foot maximum for fencing there. But we've had some light industry, some heavy industry. We just had the Blue Star Concrete that went through a variance request for an 8-foot fence. For security measures, we also just had filed about a month ago. We're getting ready to come up in a couple of weeks with our zoning appeals. The Indy Boat Storage is also asking for an 8-foot privacy fence as well to give them that added security to the property. We kind of just seeing a repeat pattern, but this being a working document, wanted to propose the idea of either just allowing an 8-foot maximum height allowance without having to require these developers to come through that variance request and step. But being the fact that it's a heavier use, there's more higher risk of injury to mechanical equipment, usually within these type of land uses, within that perimeter, just allowing them to have.
Wouldn't we classify that differently, or would it be, I'm thinking for heavy industry, wouldn't that be more a retention wall or have some other name besides just fencing? I feel like there's other classifications that fall within heavy industry.
For perimeter fencing and screening.
Screening is another one.
We could do that. The UDO does state that the height cannot exceed 6 feet above grade for residential uses, but it just doesn't expand beyond that. Guidance to our developer. So in order to build that, they feel confident installing that 8-foot fence, they're asking to go through that process. It's it could be a little murky there, kind of loose in there. So yeah, so if we could do perimeter screening.
Because we would encourage that anyway.
Any comments, questions? We're good with 8-foot, Denise?
The third one is regarding the eaves clarification. We're starting to see some repeat. There is a grid there within Google Drive. There are some examples with eaves. we're starting to see some interest for general business, heavy business, institutional developments coming in with non-pitched structures that don't have the automatic 3-foot requirement for an eave. There are, as you can see, very similar to our Needlers development out there to the east. Looks very similar to this development here that doesn't have that 3-foot eaves. Eaves, of course, are there to kind of, to help assist with, waterproofing and to retain that stability of the structure of the facility. But these are materials that can sustain that type of weathering. And with the fact that our UDO limits and requires that minimum 3-foot eave for MF2, industrial, general business, and heavy business, just wanted to put that out there for your thoughts for consideration of, do we want to give some discretion to the planning administrator to be able to permit more some flexibility for developments without having that additional pitch.
I don't see anything in general business or heavy business gonna have an eve on it at all. Particularly to today's design standards. Particularly 3 feet.
And we feel that with allowing a similar structure of this, it still will need to meet the character and combination of bump outs and elements and product. So we're confident that can be done.
Those buildings are still have to come before the boards anyway.
Yes, correct.
Any comments, questions?
So we're just removing the 3-foot eve requirement. That's the change.
For those zoning districts, that you're, and actually would be all together. For that require that minimum. We'll keep to the residential. The residential has different requirements for that.
There were only 3 zones specified. You said 4.
Probably both
General
I.
business, heavy business, institutional, and then MS. And that 2. Multifamily 2. Those are the 4 on page 60 that require that minimum 3 feet.
Okay. Multifamily 2 is not called out on the proposed amendment, though. I don't see it.
Yeah, it's not in
Oh,
your,
is it? It's not on the first spreadsheet? Okay, okay. We'll make sure.
add
we
that in.
include that. Yeah, all 4. You good with that?
Yes.
For the Fourth Amendment, this is regarding attached single-family homes. Your board had recently added a definition to that, basically clarifying that it's not a condo, it's not a 2-family housing unit. It's a housing unit that is connected usually side by side, shared generally with a shared wall, separate ownership with a living space that is for one household only. Would also have an independent outside entrance and not divided into more than one housing unit. But when looking at our UDO with the different breakdowns on chapter 2 and the different land uses that are allowed for single family 1 through single family 4 and then RC zoning district, it's broken down with single family, sometimes 2 family, and then non-residential, but it doesn't specify the single family attached. So what Hannah Rose was wanting to present was the idea of perhaps starting out with the SF4 and RC zoning to add in. That way it is clear that that single family attached dwelling would be permitted. These are examples of them. They're very normally, typically long, narrow, kind of that shotgun type property. Long and narrow. Part of that, we would need to make some consideration as far as do we want to have some added lot size minimums for that. Our lowest now is 7,200 square feet. Lot width is usually 50 to 60, depending on the zoning district, and then also the home width. Most of them are about 18. But as you see that with these attached products, they don't exactly fall into that square peg there. So things that just kind of bring to your attention to maybe discuss them in the following block. Kind of see if we want to make some accommodations more detailed.
That product is getting very
Getting very
popular.
high. Yes. and that's-
Well, most of the developers that are coming here currently have some of that in their design and their subdivision or their plat. Not the whole thing, but some of that is being incorporated in that. Call a townhome or multifamily or whatever. That style is hot. People want it. Younger crowd wants it. Some of them have rear alleys and or rear garage areas in there. So
We need another column in the,
we need another column for that.
Would we have specifications regarding, I mean, the two examples, I don't know if they're the best, like the all white one, the other, or they're all identical, because it's typical shotgun neighborhood from 100 years ago. They might have been the same, but they all look different with colors and
Oh, sure.
so I just think there's some things there we need to discuss and consider. And how much product of that too.
The other consideration is parking.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're going to encourage this kind of development, I think we need to address adequate parking and not push that burden onto the public streets. So-
Again, most of it's in the rear.
So rear alleys and or rear garages.
yes, parking areas.
Yeah.
I
Most
think
of it's in the
that's
rear.
That's where Hannah Rose was thinking that the SF4 and RC would probably be a little bit more ideal to start with, or even to just do those two zoning, because the alley aspect feature is part of those two.
And do you know how much, like a overall percentage that this is of the total development typically? When they add this in?
When.
It
as
could
far
be,
as what
could
has
be the
come
whole thing.
Forward, we've had where it's a mix of the two. We've probably had about 3 different meetings that we've had, I would say, single family and then having the attached single family, probably 50-50 or 60-40. I would say probably what we first started here.
Yeah, it's at least 50-50. Jen, we even had one that was about a third of that product, a third kind of multifamily, which almost resembled an apartment, if you will, and then a third single family, but it was all within the same subdivision development property.
If you know of some newer ones that have been built where it is comprised of more than 50, can you like let me know
Okay.
where those are so I can
Sure.
field trip around the state?
Yeah, yeah. I know Hamilton Southeastern area.
Around Saxony, I know they
Yeah,
have.
Saxony,
Yeah.
yes.
Saxony has it.
Yeah, those have been around though for a while, so I want the newer where they're even more condensed. I feel like, I mean, Saxony's, each one looks different still. I know there's probably some around Carmel, but I just don't want to be meandering.
Sure, yeah, we'll do that. We'll research into that.
So you're saying 100% townhome development.
That or like a heavy percentage,
Yeah, I mean, I
so I
see
can
that.
drive in and get that
Bill?
feel, and it helps me a little bit.
I do like having the diversity and not having them all the same.
Some
exterior.
anti-monotony.
Yes.
Yes.
Those actually, those can get pretty expensive.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that negatively, but That's what a lot of people want, and they're designing that product in their developments, and they're pricey, but people want them out. They don't want a lot of yard. They don't, it's not an apartment, it's not a house. It's kind of a maintenance-free, carefree atmosphere.
Do you know, as far as in a lot of these communities is there a certain percentage where it's community gathering? They add small parks.
Some of them, most of them seem to be HOA driven, that they that with common space and big thing as far as just, that's one thing too, even lot coverage, we will need. Surface max, maybe. But yeah, I would say very similar to kind of the conservation subdivision,
Okay.
let them kind of see a little bit more, have a little bit more higher end of that, shared common space all in kind of one area. But we definitely can do some research for you all. And get some specific subdivisions for you.
It'd be great.
What does the garage look like for those? Are they usually attached or detached in like the common space, sort of in the middle, or?
They're usually an attached garage in the rear of the home, or some of them have no garages. We just pull in the back.
Some of them are even on the bottom.
So whatever in the bottom, like a basement atmosphere, we have another level, like the back of the house might be the garage, the front of the house might be the living room, or you can go up. Some of them are 3 stories. There's a 3-story development planned on Reformatory Road across from the waste treatment plant. That field is kind of between the railroad track and the Reformatory Road in there, and those are 3-story townhomes there. It didn't go through, but it was all 3-story townhomes there. That was Ingles, by the way, not Pelham. That product is coming this way. That's the trend. So builders follow that. And they build to the trends because that's what people want. That's what sells. So,
And I think it does a lot of our 55 and older, they're finding that, they want to downsize, but they, don't want to have the yard to maintain, but they want to have that single family ownership.
and 1 floor. Okay.
So we'll continue to explore that and
Mhm.
get some more information back to you next month. Does that sound good?
That's good.
Okay. All right. And then the last UDO amendment for consideration, and again, just continuing on to next month. We wanted to bring, and I believe Hannah Rose had provided a grid for you. We've got on page 59 of our UDO, the different exterior building finishes that is permitted and prohibited for different zoning districts. And we had someone wanted to specifically kind of bring to your attention, but then wanted to ask that you look at this just as an overall look. Some of these products that are allowed in residential, where you would maybe might expect them to be in non-residential developments. So just kind of wanted to ask that you take a look over the next 30 days, and then we'll come back and talk this out more in detail. One of the items that Hannah Rose wanted to bring out was the standing seam metal. Felt like that we needed to make it very clear in the UDO that the bolt was not exposed. We are seeing some product that's coming in, and that the bolt is visible, and we want to be able to make sure that that is clear to the developer. Also, the EFIS, the exterior insulation finishing system. It is a product that, as you see, is it is prohibited in all of the multifamily as well as the commercial zoning districts. But we have found, and we're learning that the product that is EFIS today, it is very commonly used. It is very hardy, very similar to what Breck is providing with insulation. That cladding system, it provides those exterior walls with insulated, water resistant, with a finished surface on the exterior through a very integrated composite So it is not a natural material, but it's synthetic. But they're seeing that it is very, has a longevity. So with that, it's kind of like the foam board and then the fiberglass and then the finishing coat on the exterior. But as you see, it's prohibited in all of our general business, our heavy business, light industry, areas in which this product is.
Is that a product used here in this climate versus a
Yes.
warmer climate?
Very, very common.
Because I know the old product, wasn't that one that had issues with mold?
I think that was that dry fit.
That was a product problem.
Okay,
Ephes is a general term like
yeah. But it-
tissue.
but
So
it-
what's on Star Bank
The
is
dry fit.
Ephes,
Okay,
the new bank. The credit union is Ephes. The credit union, Three Rivers. That's Ephes.
okay.
I had a comment on the standing seam, Denise.
Yeah.
One thing I might clarify that is the difference between standing seam and not standing seam really is exposed fastener and concealed fastener. Your exposed fastener is more of a ribbed metal, like barn metal, where the screw head is exposed. It's kind of how they define that. Even though there is some standing seam that has an exposed fastener, not a lot, but you might want to put in there exposed fastener or concealed fastener. Most places like the concealed fastener. I don't want to see the screw head. Thank you.
Are we okay with going ahead and making that amendment for the standing seam metal, getting that clarified, and then we'll revisit this then
Sure.
next month? One thing we do want to point out, we definitely do want to keep to the maximum 20% of the EFS for. Yes, if you want to, we did give you some hard copies. If you want to take that, just kind of take a look at that and come back with thoughts as far as what you feel is appropriate. Just before we apply this, we're kind of, coming into some consistent, material that's being utilized, and although, we want to make sure that our standards are being, met for sure. We just want to make sure that, we're practical. That's what is out there with construction.
Very good.
Real quick, I do have a question. I thought we had moved away from vinyl siding on the single family SF 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it moved to hardy board or other commercially similar products. And I thought they were already excluded, but they are not showing excluded on the chart.
And that is a part of why we want you to,
Okay.
yes, please do bring that back next month. We wanted clarification of that as well. Hannah Rose went through all the revisions and the grids that were provided from the very beginning, with the planning workshop, all the way through the approval of the studio itself. And we just want to make sure that we have it exactly the way the plan. That was one of our questions as well.
Any other comments, questions on that worksheet? Okay, next.
The next item on the agenda is the comprehensive plan. Simply basic, when we had approved the impact fee, the road impact fee plan and ordinance that was relative to that, we had adopted it as part of a comprehensive plan. However, we did not, but we need to make that a formal action and have that formally placed into the comprehensive plan. We need to have that line added into our comprehensive plan. So we're asking for your approval to add in reference to the road impact fee zone improvement plan into the jurisdiction of the comprehensive plan. We can add something as simple as under the planning area, any other comprehensive plan that is found on page 8. That is also on your Google Drive, the comprehensive plan. But we can put as part of the planning and zoning jurisdiction of the town of Pendleton, the 2021 road impact fee zone improvement plan and any subsequent amendments or modifications thereto have been adopted as part of the comprehensive plan. Put something there. Jeff, you're online. If there's anything you add to that, we wanted kind of your input on that as well. If you can give your thoughts on that and whether or not do we need to include the park impact fee in this as well, or would that be separate?
I think that would be separate. I think that this particular impact fee directly relates on the UDO more than the park being its own separate entity with the unique governing body, so to speak, through the Board of Parks and Recreation. So I think this one is good enough with regard to the road impact fee, Denise.
Okay.
So have you crafted the appropriate language for the addition to the UDO?
That was my question. Do we have that verbiage?
It
I
would
don't-
be in
I-
addition to the comprehensive plan, making the road impact fee plan as part of that.
My question
Could I-
is, did Jeff write the language that we want to insert into the UDO to make sure that it's crisp and clear with the developers?
Nothing's going in the
That's
UDO, right?
not I'm not aware of that discussion that was going to be a part of the UDO.
This is just an amendment to the
Comp plan.
comp plan for the impact fees.
It's the reference language is what I'm trying to ask about. Has Jeff written the language that references what we're trying to do?
I have not.
Okay,
Was that I have?
he is not.
He has not.
I have not, Tim, but not negative.
All right, thank you.
I don't believe for the state statute of the series 1300, which is the statute, it's not a requirement to be a part of the UDO. Is that correct, Jeff? I mean, that's from my understanding.
Yes, Denise.
Not
that
in the
is.
part of the comprehensive plan.
Yep.
Guess I'd like to move the table. That's we see actually see the verbiage on that. About that.
That makes sense.
Let's table that item, Denise.
That sounds good. And then next on the list, we have the MCOG I-69 corridor plan. Hannah Rose wanted to provide an update to inform your commission of discussions that have been taking place here. It is a project that Scott Rusky and Hannah Rose is a part of the steering committee. This steering committee has been developed and led by the Madison County Council of Governments. They have been meeting since about March of 2023. They meet about every month, every other month. And they explain that this is a very preliminary stage of this project. It's kind of sort of an overlay of the I-69 corridor that would run from exit 214 to north of exit 226 there at Anderson. It goes to the boundary lines of the Madison County and the unincorporated Madison County. They are kind of up kind of close to Chesterfield. So what the goal is of the steering committee is to create kind of a branding theme for this corridor. It would not say trump our I-69 master plan that is here at exit 219, but it would kind of help govern some basic development standards along that pathway. So that could be road materials, sidewalk requirements, access, signage requirements, basic development standards there. They have actually relied upon your UDO that you have put into place and the development standards, street standards, and so forth. So that has been, is going to be used as building blocks for that project. And then as the municipalities and those within the jurisdiction within those areas, what they would probably most likely be entering into is a MOU, understanding that they would either uphold those standards or exceed those standards when they do have development coming. But it would not require us to change our I-69 plan. So as we see fit, so forth. But we wanted to let you know that that movement is, project discussed, and Hannah Rose indicated that their next monthly meeting is in October. So probably here in November, she'll give you another.
That's what I was gonna ask,
Right.
if she could give us updates, and then if there's anything that is subpar to what we've decided, and not just our section, but that we are facing, I think that needs to be brought back here, because there could be a need for us to construct a letter to this board as well.
So like it's Ingalls, Pendleton, Anderson, and then like
Yes,
who,
right up to Val Delville, but on the,
then the unincorporated areas, is that who represents
Be the
that
county.
the
The
county,
county. County planning.
county planning?
And with this, and I don't know details of the other project, but if funding were to come available and so forth, any designing and so forth, that's MCOT assistance on that.
So what is the fundamental objective of doing this?
From my best understanding, and speaking with Scott Bresky earlier today, it's to be able to create a common theme, a branding theme for Madison County. So when you pass through I-69, you're going to see a lot of uniformity. It doesn't mean that each area can't have its own character and its own, feel and vibe, but yet there could be some consistency from Arkansas areas, since we do have several different jurisdictions within this range.
Is there a common objective? Or are there disparate objectives across each one of those geographic areas?
Just from, my understanding is that they just want to be able to kind of come together regionally. If there is any type of path or a project that they may be able to go down the corridor, having off roads, if there is any type of extra need for a new grant offering, any of those type of things, it's just a place for that steering committee can have the discussions and
It's probably more for a long-term
long-term planning.
planning. It's much like was it 73rd Street extension? It's not getting off the ground, obviously, because of funding, but it's there. It's probably gonna happen sometime, it's just when.
Well, I
It's the
guess,
road that gonna come around, go through Nestle, it's a turn south and come towards us somewhere, but they try to talk and work that out together, so we're all on the same wavelength, if that's, or move it up, or move it down, or.
well, I guess that's why I'm asking the question. Some of these municipalities may have an inclination for heavy industry and developments along the I-69 corridor that would, in my opinion, detract from what we are trying to preserve here on our end. I mean, you've already discussed the heavy truck traffic, the impact on property values of heavy truck traffic, the fact that we are not wanting to anchor in a lot of heavy industry and, commercial truck stops, et cetera, here in our areas. So if you look at the master plan across 4 or more entities, I'm trying to understand if there is a common vision or if it is everyone trying to maximize their tax revenues regardless of the community impact on Southern Madison County.
I don't think, I don't think they're trying to get a step ahead of anybody else, like Anderson's trying to beat us, we're trying to beat them to lure somebody. It's just a matter of
Setting some common standards.
some
it sounds
standards.
like.
I mean, if you
Yeah.
look at exit 14, it's getting real industrial and real trucky down there and gonna get worse. On the other side of hand, we've turned about all that away out here,
Correct.
as you know, which in my opinion and this board's opinion, we've done the right thing. We didn't want all the trucks and the warehouses and et cetera. So to your point, there's gonna be different minis at every exit. Obviously, you go up the next exit, you got IMI right there. So that's, there's not a lot of people want to build around a stone quarry and the dust and noise and et cetera. The LKQ car company looked at that field across the street, and luckily, and that was Anderson, directly across the street. That's Anderson zoning, and they wanted it. The only reason they didn't go there was because it wasn't big enough. It was only 70 acres. If it'd been 100 acres, hadn't been a done deal. LKQ would have been there probably breaking ground right now.
Well, I think that brings up the point that I was trying to understand is Anderson would have probably graciously accepted LKQ
Yep.
at the same time that we did not want it, and that was an adjacent property.
So there, not to bring up a ugly dragon right now, but that was a little bit of the talk from the township merger and the town, was that in doing so, the town can govern that property out there with the Pilton's rules versus Madison County Council rules. Because what happens when it gets farther away from your backyard, you get less interested. And that's what's happening at exit 14. Because that's a little hole out there. It's away from LaPel, it's away from Ingalls. That's why all stuff's going out there, because they don't care. And all those fields out there, either Ingalls fields or LaPel fields, and it's just let them go at it.
So will this continue on besides the parameters of whatever goal or vision this
Well, I
has
think
started?
the-
Because I think some of these discussions between all the entities of the town or the unincorporated need to continue beyond just having some standard sidewalk plan and whatever is occurring out of this. One example is when Nestle and that area was developed for industrial, and the area needed it. 25 years ago, we all saw, all these empty homes in the area. But now, as things are building up, and again, I hear there's no funding, but yet I also hear Nestle's expanding. Oh, there's more industry, but then I realize we can't control that. But then it puts more of a push on our community. So again, is this the mechanism where those hardy discussions happen because they need to?
I think at this point, it's just more of the planning stage. They're gathering their ideas, kind of how they envision where they see this is going to go. Once things become more concrete, in place, agreements and so forth, it will become a public things that they'll have public meetings and hearings on to share that, just as like they did for the US. So when they get to that point, I think once they solidify kind of their purpose and their goal, and I don't believe it's a land use control group. I think it's just more of the standards and just giving Madison County a light, just having it to where when they drive through I-69, they identify, I'm in Madison County.
But I think it can be more.
And that-
I think it
absolutely.
needs to be more.
Absolutely. So yeah, I do. Yeah, I think that as this progresses and things, get more details, we'll continue to relay that back to Plan Commission, because eventually at some point you'll be more heavily involved is what I best understand.
I mean, all that industry and what we've seen, the light pollution, we talked about that. So we want to make sure their standards every time they expand and grow and add. We know that's in just an industrial area there, but across the interstate, that's all residential for our community. And so more parking lots mean more lights. Even the addition of, are they gonna keep putting more trees? Because that's pretty much field out there. So some of that trees could help block some of that. So all of those discussions, we don't have a mechanism for that to occur. And I think something like this needs to morph into that for long-term.
Yeah, I definitely think the regional communication, it's been identified as very much a priority. And I think the tax will be a very positive thing.
Bringing everybody to the table,
Yeah.
I think is the best way to do it.
In the next meeting, can you define what the actual area is that this would apply to?
Sure, yeah.
so that I can envision.
Yeah, we can get a map and we can absolutely.
On services areas outside of the county. There's other municipalities that they have relationships with. Their number one concern though is transportation, regional planning of transportation. It's like what Denise said about the ramps and that sort of thing. It's not so much land use, it's all about transportation and layering of projects to maximize funding and that sort of thing. And so I think that's really what this project is more to highlight than land use or zoning type things.
Exactly. Any questions or comments from the audience about anything or? Yes, ma'am, could you please step up to the podium? State your name and your address.
Yes, my name's Rachel Allen. I live at 415 East Madison here in town. You said something about it being a theme for Madison County?
A branding. kind
A
of
branding, right. So, I mean, I work for Madison County DCS, so I see a lot of Madison County. I'm trying to be polite to Anderson, but we all know it's a hot mess. So my question would be like, how can Pendleton stay separated in a beneficial, pleasant way from the rest of the northern Madison County, as it were? Because, and I'm not sure what a benefit to like having a theme, or if we would want to be lumped in with Anderson's theme, I guess, to some extent. So I just wanted to clarify what they meant exactly by branding, or, you know, do you understand what I'm trying to ask?
Sure.
Yeah.
And just, and like, I want to clarify,
Yeah.
I'm not a part of this
Right.
committee.
Yes, I picked up on that.
But I have been a part of some conversations, some regional conversations, and I am very, very pleased to hear the voices from the Anderson community,
Mhm.
Madison County,
Mhm.
and that they want to share that same community feel, that here, that we get to enjoy here in
Mhm.
Pendleton.
Mhm.
So I think that they've been encouraged by, development that have come from the south, and I think they
Mhm.
want to be a part of it.
Mhm.
And I think that, that there's a lot of things that the Pendleton community offers our county and our residents, and there's things that I think that we can learn from each other and come up with some common goals. And as far as the branding, what I understand was maybe through some consistency, with maybe some signage, or it might be some things that, that we can highlight Madison County, because we are all Madison County. And so if
Sure.
that's something that we could have along our corridor, that I think that that would be a plus for all. That would strengthen from north to south to Madison County. 'Cause
Yeah.
we're a pretty large footprint.
Yes,
And,
no, yeah, I'm
and-
aware.
Yeah. And
I
each
travel.
community is very unique
Yes.
in and of itself. And I think
Yes.
that's one of the goals that they want to stress, is that each community will be able to highlight their own individuality, be a very inclusive, project, but yet to be able to showcase the separate different areas. There's some different, even some side projects that have been discussed about having a video of Madison County to highlight the different special communities that we have. And,
Sure.
But yet be as one. as well.
Yeah. I just, if people are spending money, I would rather see a pretty significant benefit from it versus just,
Yeah, and I think that's where Madison County Council of Governments.
Yeah,
They
right.
come, that they're a funding source, a huge funding source for all of our communities. They have relationships with the state and with the
Yeah.
federal, and they can funnel those funds down to, and I think that's kind of where all this kind of came.
right. Well, I had someone from the Madison City Council reach out to me, which I haven't spoken with him yet, but because I want to be educated about things first before I speak to people, so. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, be involved, yeah, that'd be great.
Can you identify which communities are at the table?
I do not know that. I've not been a part of the meetings to
Okay.
be able to answer that question. I can find that out, and we can definitely get that back to you. I would assume representatives from each of the communities. I know that with our Madison County Stormwater Quality Partnership, we hit from Chesterfield to Alexandria, City of Anderson. We also have Ingalls, in Pendleton, 7 entities. Probably missing one there. I'm assuming Elwood is very involved with
Bill's probably on there.
Elwood. I don't know, Lapel might be involved with this, but yet again, it may be just limited to those that touch the I-69 corridor. So it may just be those that have exposure to I-69, and of course, then unincorporated.
Stephanie, anybody online or anything?
We do have one more update that's not on the agenda. But
Go ahead.
I just want to make sure before we close the
No, that's fine.
So block 1 of the secondary plat of Cole Carney's property, that secondary plat has been approved by the technical review. This block is just limited to 2 parcels that sit east of the Heritage Way roundabout. There's just those 2 parcels. One's about 2.6 acres, one's about an acre. There will be 3 roads there, Rosegate Drive, Serenity Drive, which would be the right in, right out there off of State Road 38, State Street, and then the Heritage Way. Towards these 2 parcels, the developer will be providing the beginning development of the roads. However, it'll be very limited, very minimal, about less than an acre of asphalt there, be pretty much the stub-offs that they're going to provide. But the purchasers of each of those property parcels will have to go through the site development plan review process, and will have to develop the roads that are adjacent and around surrounding.
I should have signed that this week.
I had a question about
Should've
that
signed that
plat.
plat.
So are they installing
Should've signed
sanitary
that.
sewer to those lots?
Yes. they
Because
will.
I'm looking at the plat and all it has is building lines. It has no easements on it.
They've redone that. It's, we just signed off on it this week.
Okay, so there's some.
I don't know if you can,
May not be the most.
May not be the
current
most
one.
I
recent.
just want to make sure that's been. looked
yeah, it
at,
has. The
so.
drawing, the road's gonna go completely behind, that property, which is the gas station convenience store.
Yeah,
And it'll turn into the back. We have a right in, right out, and it'll stop to the other lot till that other lot is developed.
Yeah.
To the east.
Okay.
Right there. They'll stop the road right there to the east. For those of you in the audience, that's the first roundabout. That's the north spoke right there, Denise. There'll be a gas station on the northeast corner of the first roundabout. Then that's set to go.
Those will be general business there. On the road.
Yeah, there's 2, if not 3 lots to the west. Then to the north, that road's gonna continue north through that field. Okay,
I did have one quick comment. So looking at our zoning ordinance and minimum lot sizes on like ag and some of the rural residential, I've noticed just seeing what is in the market, it seems like 3-4 acre country lots are becoming very popular. And I don't know that our UDO really facilitates a mechanism to do like a 3 acre
single family,
single family, like if a farmer
single plot.
farmer wants to put 2 or 3 lots out front and retain his farm ground, you know, the ag minimum lot size is 40 acres, so it makes it impossible. Ag A2 is 10 acres, which is still, you know, if somebody wants to split 10 acres and build on it, it's half of it's going to go to weeds because it's too much to take care of. Rural residential's 5 acres, that's still probably too much. And then if you get below 5 acres, it requires water and sewer. So I don't know if we want to have a discussion maybe for next time
Let's
about,
put that on there for October.
I mean, the county does 2 acres, I believe. Minimum.
Yeah, minimum.
So I think maybe we need to have a discussion about tweaking those.
We do
acreage
have a
numbers.
question out there for clarification for that, under the exempt subdivision.
Yeah, some of those exemptions in the UDO are a little wonky.
Yes, exactly. So we reached out to the workshop, to get a little bit more clarification, make sure that there's no zoning statutes that give that protection, because if you do, if you parcel off, say, 2 acres, 5 acres even, exempt at one time per calendar year type thing, do they need to go through the reason process to be able to meet that? So we agree, yes.
Yeah, in that section, it says exempt subdivisions are exempt from the UDO, which is
Yeah.
kind of unusual. So,
Yes, and those processes, yes. So I'm hoping, I think she returns the 18th of September. She is out, so, but we're
Okay.
hoping to be able to get an answer for us. and
Okay.
we can bring that back.
well, maybe when
October
Hannah's
planning.
back, we could have a discussion. Okay.
Okay.
Questions, comments? Nothing from the audience? Appreciate you guys coming. I know you,
Mhm.
most of you are here for the subdivision. Sorry, disappointment. Maybe next time.
And Tim, just, I forget our person that spoke, the, yes, I just wanted to say thank you for being a social worker for our county. I just couldn't remember your name, so sorry.
It's Rachel.
Long-
Yeah, thank
Well,
you.
Thank you
Well,
for
thank you
your
all for
work.
service, 'cause you also do a thankless job, so I
Thank
appreciate
you.
all as well.
All right. Hearing that, meeting adjourned.